Reinga, welcome back to the Raw. Seems like only yesterday you were here after that fantastic win during the season, and now you're back. It serves you right for making a decision to leave. So we had to get you in to bookend the career. Tell us a little bit about Saturday, and obviously it was the classic case of mixed emotions. I'm sure on a day like that, but a pretty special occasion.
Yeah. Look, Saturday was an interesting day, and for me, I went full coaching mode and went into processes. So I had been asked throughout the week, do you feel emotional about this game? And I was quite probably a little bit harsh in some of my responses to people. I was like, well, do you get emotional when you go to work? No, you don't. You just get on with your job. So that was probably myself trying to protect myself. But yeah, just really concentrated on being in the moment and staying in the process of actual game day. And just for me, I really wanted to make sure that I was able to just fully be present in what was happening in every second of the day. So that's why I stuck to my process. I was like, right, get up, do what you normally do, go for a walk, get to captain's run, tick all the boxes so that I didn't want the emotion of things to sort of take over and all I could remember was me sort of bursting into tears. So I didn't want that to happen. So it was just about making sure that I really enjoyed and celebrated every last moment that I could being the coach after all this time.
And that's great, and it sounds great when you say it. It can't have been the truth, though, was it?
I kind of feel like I did a pretty good job.
Oh, no, I'm sure you did.
Yeah, there were definitely moments in the day that really got me, and I got to captain's run, and there was just Joe and myself courtside, and I thought, they're all not late. Where are they? They were up to something, and I was sort of scanning around thinking, where are they? And they're out the back with these masks that they'd made with my face and hair on them and stuff, and out they came in this funny little line, and which was so great. Like, I just thought it was hilarious, and just they had this really sad love song on, goodbye my lover, goodbye my friend. I was like, oh, it was just so funny that I just couldn't help but laugh. So it sort of lightened the mood of things, and but it was a real just, their way of saying thank you. So yeah, there were moments like that. Even when we got to the game, I delivered my final team talk, and I was at home an hour before. My son was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm just writing my team talk. And he's like, can you show me? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, is that it? I was like, that's it, mate. You just stick to processes. And he was like, there's no emotion in that. I was like, exactly. So it was just all, again, about making sure that we did our job, stay in the moment. Coming out of the change room for the last time, I knew something else was up when Dana was like, you have to stay at the back. I was like, I never go at the back. I always, you have a particular order of doing things. And they just about tackled me. And and I think when they did the Guard of Honour, I did choke up a little bit, and I was like, oh, you need to keep this together. So, and it was just nice to see, those little celebrations, I suppose. So once I got through that Guard of Honour, I was like, flick the switch again and get back into coach mode. And again, the game probably didn't go the way that we wanted it to, but that final quarter was amazing, and I just loved every minute of it and thought the girls finished on a real high. So again, stayed present, stayed in the moment. What are we doing? Great. This is awesome. And then just was able to enjoy it and just sit there quite happily amongst, those people, the supporters behind me, my family behind me, my team on the court, my management beside me, and just really enjoy it. So just soaked it up. It was just like bathing in the sunlight, really.
That's awesome.
So at what stage, I guess, did the switch flick back the other way?
Yeah, I don't know if it's actually hit me just yet. There was a definite moment after the game. They did a presentation, which was great. And I think there was a couple of cuddles that I had with some of the girls, and, some of the things that they were saying to me, I was like, oh no. And there were definite tears in those moments. And I think that'll be hard in the next couple of weeks. Like, we've got reviews and debriefs and stuff like that. And then next week we've got the gala, and that'll be the final time that I see them. I think that's probably when it's going to hit me, when I have to say goodbye for the final time. So I think for me, I've been processing this decision that I've made over the last couple of months, particularly in the last month. So I knew it was coming. So for me, I knew, right, it's coming. What do I want it to look like? What are the emotions that I want to ride? What are the emotions that I want to just put to the side a wee bit? So And I kind of feel like this next couple of weeks are going to be like that. I just feel like I'm sitting in this funny little space at the moment because I don't feel like, I haven't got a team and I haven't got my new team yet, so I'm kind of sitting in a funny wee funk at the moment. But again, just going to make sure that in the next week or so that I just enjoy the last few moments with the team, which would be great.
Are you able to talk us through, I guess, how long this has been in the pipeline and how this has actually all come about, that you've ended up heading to Cardiff?
Yeah, I think the last time that I spoke, I sort of said to you that last year there was a moment in the season where I thought, I'm going to lose my job. When you lose that many games, if I was in charge of the franchise, I'd be thinking she's gone. And I think that's the landscape of coaching. Like, you are judged on your performances and results. And it is very clear in my contract and very clear in my key performance indicators that I have to try and aim for top 3 every year. So as soon as you don't meet that expectation, you really have to go, as an organisation, they're looking and saying, is she doing what we've employed her to do? So I've always known that in all of my 8 years. And even the years where I have made top 3 or haven't won, I always think, this could be the moment. Like, they could just go, you're not the right person for us, we're going to get rid of you. So I think for me, I sort of last year made me have a really good look at myself and think, where do I want to go? What do I want to keep achieving? But I really felt that last year I had probably coached better than I had any other year. And then again this year, it's been tough again. And I think the circumstances in which this season has sort of played out with all the injuries that we've had, as tough as it's been, I've kind of felt like, oh gosh, I actually know what this feels like. So it's okay, because I'm like, we've been there before. These are things we need to focus on, which is really sad because you know what you need to focus on, you get really good at it. And I'm not saying you get good at losing, but you get good at really reflecting and looking at yourself and knowing what the next step has to be. So somewhere between last year and this season, I had always had a long-term goal of heading overseas to do some coaching. So somewhere in that process, this job just came up. It came up and they said, look, this is available. Do you want to have a look at it? And I sort of had a look at it and thought, oh, yeah, and I just put it to the side. And I knew it was there, but I'd also really challenged myself this year and applied for some other roles and missed out on those. So that was also good learning for me, going through the process of, having an interview for the Silver Ferns coach and then assistant role and stuff like that. Like, I really put myself out there and thought, right, if I'm going to do something different, I might as well start at the top and see how I go.
Absolutely.
And then had the Cardiff thing in the background just sort of simmering away. So probably in the last 6 weeks, that's when I have had to really make a decision and commit to them, and had to have a big family meeting around it because it's a big move, and got full support from the kids. And so I said, rightio, I'm off to Cardiff. And yeah, so they're really excited about it. And I'm really excited about it too. And I think for me, the timing's right. Like, I feel like I've done all that I can here with this team. I know that I've given it my all. I put my heart and soul into this team. And I'm really happy to be able to leave on my own terms and in a really good space that I still feel like I've got a great relationship with the franchise. I've got a great relationship with players, because this isn't goodbye forever. It's just see you later for now, and then we'll see what else opens up.
You've invested a lot over those years, and there's some other familiar faces that have been around for a long time. Was it hard to break that news?
Yeah, it definitely was. I had spoken to Dana about it because her and I share an office, and I said that this opportunity had popped up, and she was like, you've got to go for it. Like, she was fully backing me. And then she was like, what am I going to do? I was like, I don't know. So she sort of knew about it. Jo Morrison, I'd sort of talked to her about it. So the three of us had this dirty little secret, I suppose, for a wee while, and we just kept it to ourselves. But yeah, when I made the decision and I fully committed and I was ready to, get a contract and stuff, I went and spoke with Sonia and I said that this opportunity had come up. And she was amazing. Like, she fully supported me, and she said, this is so cool for you and we're so happy. I think after an hour, once it had sunk in, she'd come in. She was like, "Do you have to leave?" And, "Oh, no, I've got to find a head coach." And, when she stopped to think about it, she's really happy for me to go, but obviously she would have liked for me to stay as well. But I think it's so nice that they're able to support me with the decision that I've made and send me off happily, which is quite cool.
So the interesting part about the last little bit of our chat here is how you felt I won't say the axe hanging over you, but how you seriously contemplated that over that period often.
Yeah.
Even when you make finals and the like as well, So I guess that's an insight into the life of a high performance coach, right? Because from the outside looking in, you would go, look, we don't think there was any heir apparent. Never seemed like there was ever any talk around it. But is that something that is just the way it is from a coaching point of view, or your high standards individually?
A bit of both, I think. I think for me, I do have high standards, but I do also, like I've had lots of friends who've been rugby coaches or other coaches, and they may have done well, and then they've still been axed, and you're gone, and it can happen that quickly. And so I think I always had that hanging over me and always thought, I don't want that to happen to me. I want to be able to be in control of making my own decisions.
Very few people get that opportunity though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's exactly right.
From a player point of view and from a coaching point of view.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think, I've had players over the years who have been moving towards maybe the end of their career, and I have always felt that if I can get them to leave on their own terms, that's so much nicer than me saying, we don't have a contract for you anymore. So I always thought I've treated them that way. That's the way that I want to be, treated as well. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think that's the nature of coaching. You're only as good as your last game, really. So it doesn't matter if you've won 2 championships and that you have gone through seasons being unbeaten. When you lose, people only remember that. And you could be the greatest coach in the world and lose, and then the next minute you're gone as well. So I fully know what I've invested myself into, but I do understand that, the landscape can be really brutal. So
great career choice, right?
Yeah, really stable. Go for it, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, you're really selling it.
Well, I guess the other thing that with that, obviously we don't know the future around netball in New Zealand and how many teams that might be. And I guess, didn't really think about this now, but that also flows into people that have made a career out of netball and the potential of limited opportunities in New Zealand, or fewer opportunities as a head coach or professional coach.
Absolutely. And there's 6 head coaches in our country. So we have 6 people who have the opportunity to be a head coach, and that's why I've always said it's an absolute privilege to get that role. And when I first moved into the role, even making the decision to stay in coaching, I was teaching full-time, stable, day-to-day job, knew that I was going to be able to feed my family, knew that, I'd get holidays every now and then, and I'd still have a job on Monday unless I'd done something really tragic. But, and then to make the decision to move into coaching, it's definitely not about money for me. It's all about experience. And, I had to really weigh that up at the time when I did make that move. And I remember at the time sitting at home and Jason McKenzie come around and he was helping me sort of process it all. And I remember being quite upset and saying, no, I can't do it. I just need to stay teaching, because it was the easier option. And then he said, just go away and think about it and da-da-da-da-da. And when I look back now, I knew why I was sort of sitting on the fence about moving into the coaching arena, but I wouldn't change everything now. Now, I think those are the things that I'm most proud of myself about, making those decisions. And now that's even making this decision. I could have stayed here in Invercargill and been maybe the steel coach for another 2-3 years quite happily, but is that the right thing for me to do? And am I being true to myself? Am I still growing my capacity as a coach and growing my skills? And so me going to the other side of the world is about me still developing and challenging myself. And does it scare the bejeebies out of me? Absolutely. Like making that decision, actually having to fully commit to the Dragons that day that I had a meeting at like 8 o'clock at night, and I was a wreck all day. I think I cried like 500 times, and I just kept bursting into tears thinking, what am I doing? Is this the right decision?
Before or after?
Before.
Okay.
Before. And then I remember like FaceTiming the kids and like having a wee chat to them. And they're like, what are you worried about, Mum? Just do this. You tell us all the time to go and try new things. And I was like,
I hate it when they throw it back at you.
yeah. And so I was like, I do. So I've got to just keep living by this. So then, after going into the meeting and just saying, look, these are some of the concerns I have, they were like, don't worry about that. We've got you. I was like, rightio, this is it. I'm going. Yeah. So, yeah. And I'm at peace with that decision, and I'm really happy about it. And I know that there's still going to be lots of challenges along the way, but I've signed up for that. I know that I've put myself in that situation, so I'm just ready to roll with it.
What do you know about Cardiff as a place?
I know that's cold and wet, and everyone
be
keeps
too far on then.
everyone keeps reminding me about that. Look, when I was there last year, the thing that I suppose I was drawn back to were the people. I think it reminds me a lot of here. The people are really friendly. The landscape in the countryside is like being in Southland. It's green, there's hills, it's beautiful. The people that I met over there were fantastic and really looked after me. So I know that I'm going to a place that somebody will care for me, which is great. And I just think that when you talked about the landscape of netball and what's going to be happening in New Zealand, I think with the Netball Super League 2.0, they're sort of moving into a professional era. And I really like the vision that they've got going forward. Like it feels like they've put a stake in the ground and they're really aiming high. And so I think for me, that's what excites me the most, that I get to be a part of that journey to help. They've got a really good setup there, don't get me wrong, but I get to help pull them more into that performance era and try and elevate what they're already doing. So I think that's what excites me.
Because is it a mixture of amateur, like is it semi-professional or is it professional?
So it's moving into professional. So they've had players in the past who some have been paid and others would barely get enough money. You wouldn't be able to live on it. So, but now they're moving into an era where all 10 players get paid, which is great. I don't know about if all the support staff get paid. So there's still lots of things I have to learn. But yeah, the direction that they're moving in seems really exciting.
It's an interesting space to be in though, right? Because there are challenges around that. And I think you'd even say that from a game point of view here, whilst you're further down the path, the reality is they're not full-time 12-month athletes, even from a netball perspective as well too. So, what sort of experiences, I suppose this is probably part of your application, was that, you've kind of ridden through that process here in New Zealand as well, so that probably puts you in a good position to be catching a game on the upward trend potentially from a professionalism point of view on the other side of the world.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that probably drew them to me, is they know that where I've come from and what our competition has looked like. So I think for them that was a massive sort of selling point for them, and I think for me also knowing that that's where they're heading, I was really excited about that. And yeah, the whole 12-month a year professional athlete thing, that's what I found last time when I was in Cardiff with the Welsh Feathers. All of those girls had jobs, all of them. Like, you're talking psychologists, doctors, lawyers. They all had these amazing jobs and they played netball for fun and they didn't get a cent. Whereas a lot of the players that are being contracted into the Cardiff Dragons, they again have careers, but now they're getting a bit more money to spend on themselves, doing a bit more training and being able to play this game that they love. And I think that work ethic that they've got really resonates with me, because I love people that work hard, because I love to work hard. You don't always have to be the most talented, but if you're prepared to work really hard, I think I gravitate towards people like that. So I think that was one of the things that really attracted me when I was there last time, sitting at the table and they were like, do you know what I do for an occupation? I was like, no. And then, they were just throwing things out there. And I was just gobsmacked to think that these women were going off, being a doctor during the day and then coming to training at night because they just loved it. So I think for me, being able to sort of help them shift into that era but still hold on to that work ethic is really exciting.
It's a chicken and egg thing, though, isn't it? Like the more money that can come into the game, as you say, the more time time in the gym, getting the massage, being able to do the prep stuff, the product just gets better, which then leads to more sponsorship and advertising, more money comes in. Like, it's just this, it's so important to keep that cycle going.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think that's the other thing about the Cardiff Dragons, the people like their CEO, Vicky, and their performance manager, Sarah, their vision that they have for the club is massive. Like, they had to submit a 10-year plan just to get into the competition. So when it went down it moved from 10 teams to 8 teams, so you had to do this huge submission of what you were thinking for 10 years. Like, I hardly know what I'm doing from day to day. And I just think, to be able to have that insight just shows the drive and the passion that they've got for the Dragons and also the Feathers and also for netball. Like, they just really want to move it into that professional era.
What have you heard from? There's been a few players, I guess, drifting backwards and forwards between the two competitions, more so in the last few years. Like, what have you heard about what that competition sort of looks at? Obviously, it's changing a bit now, but what have you learned about that?
Yeah, I think there's going to be lots of things that I am going to learn, but I think, there's people like Grace Namana who played over there, might have been last year, and then came back, and there's been a few other Kiwis. Stacey Peters played for the Cardiff Dragons years ago, so they talk about that league then being probably the equivalent of our NNL or Beco League. So they have talked about it being maybe a level down from ANZ. But I think that's a direction that they want to head into. They're really trying to attract better coaches, better players to lift it up. And a lot of the players, particularly in the English Roses team, they go over to Australia. Like, the really good players are in Australia. So they're trying to keep them in the Super League so that it boosts their own competition. So I think, just in the next couple of years, I think there could be a little bit of shift. So if we can hopefully next year create this competition that's a little bit more attractive and they can keep more of their players in their own country, then I think it will definitely improve. They do have a import rule where I think you can bring 1 or 2 import players in. So things like that may attract some New Zealand players to go over there and help boost things up as well.
Have you been involved in the process to appoint your successor?
A little bit. Yeah, there's a little bit. Like, I'm very invested in this franchise, so I have said to Sonny, like, whatever way I can help, I'm willing to do that. And I said, in terms of what you need in a coach, I know that stuff. So, use me as much as you can to do that. So I do know that the applications have closed. So. And that they have. Just
run us through the top candidates, if you like.
I don't know the names. I think she's smarter than giving me all the names because I'm terrible at lying. So, I know that she has shared with me what the process will be, and I think that's really important because the landscape right now for the players is that they, especially our players, you can speak to your players right now to contract them, but, they're a little bit worried about who their coach is going to be. Yeah. So I want
the key decision, really, or one of them anyway, isn't it, from a player point of view?
Absolutely, because they want to work with somebody that they know is going to make them the best that they can be. So that's why the process had to be really quick to try and get the best person for the job and make sure that, in the next couple of weeks when they're contracting, they can say, Nick's coming in to coach the Steel, do you want to play for him or not? And they're like, yep, okay, it sounds like somebody I can work with, or absolutely not, I don't want to. I don't think there's anyone in our team that would be like that, but I don't know because I don't know who they're going to recruit. So, so yes, I am involved, but sort of on the periphery.
Yep.
And I can't help myself, like I really want to be involved in the contracting as well because I really want to be able to have a team that is not just competitive but can win this competition next year. Like, I'm so invested in making sure that, like, I feel like I wasn't able to do that, but whoever else comes along, we need the best team possible so that they can be successful. So I'm doing my best to make sure that we keep the best players that we can and keep a really solid core, and then add in a few little gems that will help improve the overall team.
So I was going to ask that. I mean, what you think, which we can talk in hypotheticals really, because you won't be necessarily involved directly. But what do you think that involves in terms of what the Steel needs to get to that next level?
Yeah, look, I think you've got to try and maintain a core of players, because I think when you have new players coming in all the time, you lose momentum somewhat. Sometimes you do have to have a bit of a clean out though. Sometimes you just have to go, actually, this is not working, let's get rid of this and let's start again. But I think we have got players who are really loyal to our franchise and who are still improving and showing that they have got what it takes. They just haven't quite put it together just yet. So I think that's really important, that there's that growth piece. So I think if we can sort of keep some of those players and then add in, like, if I'm going to be brutally honest, I think throughout New Zealand we're really short on wing attacks. We've had so many injuries in that wing attack position this year that if you're a wing attack anywhere, you should be, like, you are going to get scooped up. If you're, I shouldn't say half decent, but if you're decent, you are really going to be a hot commodity and people would be silly not to go after you. So yeah, I think the wing attack position is massive, and you have to make, like, the wing attacks are really, that's the toughest position on the court. They can steer the ship, they can control the tempo and the memento, and you saw, like, when Shannon was on the court for just those brief moments, even with a sore knee, what she did. So, you know, if you can have that sort of player, a calibre of player for longer, it's going to make everyone else's job easier. So, yeah, that would be the key position for me.
I guess it's the key though is, you know, are we still able to sort of attract some of these the challenge is trying to attract, you know, saying, right, we need a wing attack or whatever it is, we're going to go after that, is actually, you know, saying that this is a good place to come to, and this is a organisation that's good to be part of.
Yeah. That is the key, and strangely, I say strangely because I think it's weird, especially when you lose, like we lost 15 games on the trot last year, and then we had all of these players approaching us, and some of them were from winning teams, and I'm thinking, newsflash, we lost, you won, why are you wanting to come here? But
winning papers over a lot of cracks, right? It does tend to actually, and you do realise the really fine line that exists between teams that are at one end of the table and then teams that are perhaps further up but are barely holding it together for whatever reason, right? That's the thing I was going to say to you before too, from a coaching point of view. I mean, you make the point that last year was probably one of your better coaching performances, right? So you can only play with the parameters that you're kind of thrown at you from an injury point of view, player loss point of view, from a recruitment, largely for personal and family reasons that you lose players. So you lose some of that consistency as well too. So yeah, it's such a challenge there, and that recruitment space, doesn't matter what it is. I think across the board we've had these conversations from a basketball point of view. They are very analogous that the Sharks have struggled with as well too. You know, the cost of actually doing business and getting players to places like Invercargill, there is a tax that you have to pay. I'm sorry, but there is. It's just the parameters. Now, you can be bitter and twisted about that. Trust me, some of us do get that way. But it's just the reality of actually operating in that environment, right? So it's kind of another element that you have to work with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like, for the Sharks and for the Steel as well, I think once we get them here, they realise what a wonderful place it is, what a great franchise that we have, and what a really cool team environment that we've created down here. So I think that is a massive strength of ours. We just have to get them here. Yeah? And because they do think that when they come here, especially if they come from somewhere like Auckland, they think, oh no, I'm coming to Invercargill, it's the end of the earth, there's nothing to do and I'm going to freeze to death. That's actually what they do think. once they're here, they realise that it's such an amazing place. The community just wrap themselves around them and they just love it. So if we can attract them here and just get them to come and have a wee look, then, then they can see what a great place it is. And I was talking to Summer Temu's mum the other night, and she said, obviously Ali Temu has come to play in Invercargill a number of times. She said, we've never even come to watch, and now Summer's in your team, we've come down twice, and I just love it here in Invercargill. And I was like, it's actually a really nice place. So, and it's so nice to hear that. And other parents, like Saviour Tui's dad, he came at the weekend. He came last year once and then he kept coming back, and then he thought, right, Magic are playing the Steel, I need to get back to Invercargill. And so again saw him after the game upstairs and had a chat to him, and he was like, so nice to be back here even though we're in the opposition, I just love this place. And then they stayed on for a couple of days. So I love hearing those things, that it's not just about netball, it's about them being a part of the community and wanting to actually come back and visit and feeling okay even though they are the opposition, that they're going to be okay and not get mauled.
They're the ones that get you though, right? It's the Saviour Tuis, or we think about Kate Burley from the Stars game a couple of weeks ago. You're watching them on the other side and you're going, they're the ones you want to hang on to build what you're talking about, right? From a consistency point of view. Now, personal circumstance or family circumstance or whatever the circumstances was, as I mentioned before, you lose them. So they are the ones that do stick with you though, right? Because probably largely because those sort of things are outside of your control, no matter what a good job that you did from an environment point of view on supporting those people. Yeah, absolutely. And those are the people that, the Kate Burleys of this world and the Saviour Tuis are the ones that always send you a wee message and say good luck for your last game, Curls, thinking of you. So that, they're really good people. So yeah, we do. We just have to work really hard to attract people and to get them down here and try and lock them up once they're down here and hopefully keep them here. But just have to see. Yeah. So you mentioned before you've got some thoughts that you haven't been afraid to share with the organisation about what they need from a coaching point of view. I don't expect all of the details, but what does that look like? What's your take? What's been the word that you've given from a direction going forward in your mind?
Yeah, look, I think the thing about being here is that we call it in the team the Steel way. Like there's a way about how we do things. Like that work ethic piece is massive. I think what did the All Blacks had a no dickheads policy? I think that's a really key thing, that whoever comes in, I'm not saying is a dickhead, but isn't a princess, just willing to sort of pull their sleeves up and get amongst it and be a part of the community, I think is a massive, massive, massive thing. I think you just have to realise it's not just about netball. If the coach is going to be here, it's not just about netball, it's about immersing yourself in the community and being really involved and thinking about the legacy that has been created from people like Robin Broughton. Like she is the person that laid the foundation for netball here in the South. I read your article the other day, which was fantastic, and then watched the little clips that they had attached to the article and just took me back those many years ago. And listening to Mayor Tim say, this was a place that was declining faster than any other place in Australia and New Zealand. It's that stuff. It's that knowing that that's what you're stepping into. You're not just stepping into a coach role. You're stepping into part of history, that people down here are so invested in this sport that this is what they did to help our netball team, but our community keep growing. So I think those are the things that are really hard to recruit, because you could be a great coach, you could have all of these credentials, but are you willing to buy into all this other stuff, which is, to me, that's the stuff that I'm going to find hard to walk away from, because, I am a Southlander, so I get it. I know. I was there. I was part of that, and then I can see the foundation that was created, and then now, the legacy that Robin has left for us. So...
I was going to get to that at some point, so I'll do it now. Have you reflected on that a little bit in terms of that legacy, and I'll put Nolene in the conversation as well, which were helped into that role for those couple of years and then obviously took it on as well. You mentioned Robin, obviously, to have been such a part and a massive part, you won't admit to that, but we will on your behalf, of that as well. I don't know if you've had the chance yet, but I'm sure you will get time to sort of reflect on the key part that you've played in that netball story down here as well, yeah?
Yeah, I think I have thought about it, and I probably don't think about it the same way that you just said, but I think about people like Robin who laid this foundation that was just so amazing. And then I think about, there's been, I think, 4 coaches of the Steel: Robin Broughton, Janine Southby, Nolene, and myself. And I'm really proud of that I've been able to be a part of that and be there for so long. I think when people are like, oh, you've been at the helm for 8 years, and I was like, oh my gosh. Yes, I have. 8 years of, some of it's been amazing, some of it's been really tough, but it's probably not till the last few years that I've really felt that I've probably earned my stripes. Like the first couple of years, I kind of, this is so bad, and it's going to sound terrible, but I kind of feel like I was just there to hold the bibs and pat everyone on the back, because we had such an amazing team that they could have done that without anybody coaching them on the sideline. Like, they were that good. Janelle Fowler-Reid, we had Jane Watson, we had Gina Crampton-Tapai, we had so many amazing players. We had Wendy Frew, who could have run that team with her eyes closed. Like, she really could have. And so those first couple of years, it was an amazing ride, because as a young coach, all I really had to do was focus on my one little job. But as the years have gone on, there's been so many challenges and so many different opportunities that have arisen that it's not till the last few years that I thought, yes, I've really had to earn my title as head coach of the Southern Steel, because those are the things, those are the experience that have made me a better coach, an overall better coach. And, as a coach, if I only had to coach, my job would be so easy, but I have so many other hats that I have to wear, and I think in the past few years, those hats have been the hats that I've had to put on quite often, more often than just being a coach, and that's the stuff where I've had probably the biggest growth.
You probably can't have favourite players, but who have your
But I do,
favourite players?
yeah. But who would be my favourite players? Look, over the years, like, Wendy was definitely by far, a memorable player because of her leadership abilities. Like, she was such a strong leader. Like, what she said, they did. There was no questions asked. You didn't ask questions. And she was so good at supporting me as a head coach and fully bought into whatever I was doing. And she would sort of translate that into the team. So she's a definite memorable player. Who else? There's been so many, like Janelle, she's one in a million. You never coach anyone like her, but she, she's an interesting player. Who else would be a favourite?
You don't have to gloss over that. You can we can unpack that a little more if you wanted to. Sounds as if there's some story there under the...
Again, like, Janelle was so good that you didn't need to coach her. She knew what she had to do. She knew exactly what she was there for. And I think the resilience that she showed, particularly early on when she came over and left her family in Jamaica, and she was here by herself, like, she could just flick the switch and just perform, and she would be so sad because she'd be so homesick after the game. It used to break my heart. But the way that she would just be able to turn it on for a game and then get through that game, and then straight afterwards she'd be, in her bed and feeling sorry for herself. Not feeling sorry for herself, but, really thinking about her family. So I think someone like her has shown me lots of resilience. I think some of the characters that I've been able to coach are the people like the Abby Irwoods of this world. Like, there is no other person like her. She's so hilarious. Like, she is honestly one of the funniest people and so comfortable in her own skin, and that's what I love about her. And when you talk about work ethic, that's Abby. You see her. You can visualise her on the farm, throwing a sheep over her shoulder, dragging a fence post, and then going for a run and then coming off to netball. Like, she's a real character. Like, even Kate and Georgia, I have had them in my team since they were just little tiny babies who were straight out of school. And I remember one of the first team meetings that they come into, we were down at Curio Bay doing a team building thingy. They were so exhausted. We were doing this values session and they fell asleep. They were like two little kittens curled up. And they fell asleep and Gina was like, girls, they've gone to sleep. And I was like, let's just leave them. You know, they were 18 and they were exhausted from just being there. So I think being able to be a part of their journey for so long has been so nice to see the ebbs and flows of their career and where they were and where they are now. Like, you know, like Kate is mid-quarter of the World Cup, like outstanding. So people like that, yeah, I think there's people like that I sort of, well, you just don't forget those people. But yeah, I don't know if I've got favourites, but I probably have.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, actually, I just see Nick brought it up. He's probably jumping in ahead of his question here. But the moment that for me that sticks out during your tenure would be the obviously the van crash in Christchurch, and obviously that was a horrible moment. But what flowed from that, and I remember Wendy obviously hiding a lot of what she'd been through until after the final. I remember talking to her and just getting a realisation of what she and others had gone through. But I'd imagine for you, bigger than just netball, about that moment must stick out during your tender, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Sorry for jumping in there.
No, it's good, mate.
It does, and it's because, you know, over the last week people have said, what is a highlight for you? And that is a memory that's always going to stick with me, that van crash game. And, you know, we've had so many new people into our environment this year that we had people who didn't even know that we'd been in a van crash one year. And then I said, actually, we won every game that year and we even won this van crash game. So I was showing them pictures of, you know, the moments after the van crash where the van's on its side and then the girls are sitting in the gutter. And they were just like, oh, my goodness. And, like, I can remember that like it was yesterday. I don't remember lots of things, but I remember that. You know, I remember getting a phone call from Jen O'Connell. What are you doing? And she was so calm. And I was like, oh, we're just in the supermarket. I was like, everything okay? And she's like, well, yeah, we've just had a van crash. And I was like,
if anyone's going to make that phone call, you put Jen in to make that phone call. That's good. Yeah,
and that's how casually she just dropped it into the conversation. I remember I was holding two tins of Black Doris plums, you know, the big tins, because we were off to the supermarket getting food for the next couple of days, and I had one under each arm. And we were off getting different things, and I remember just running around the supermarket trying to get Dana's attention. Karina was there, Karina Ngātuere, and also Lauren Paibenga, and I was just waving. And they knew something was going on because the tins were, and I was waving at them to come. While I was still talking to Jen on the phone, and I said, so where are you? She explained where they were, and she said, and don't panic, it's okay, we've all got out of the van. And then she goes, but, and I thought, oh no. And she said, but Tapaya's got blood coming out of her ear and she's got a cut on her leg. And so as she started sort of saying a few things, I said, right, Jen, do you want to stay on the phone with me? And she said, no, we're just waiting for the ambulances to arrive. And I thought, oh no. And I said, rightio, we will be there in a few minutes. Just sit tight. Is everyone okay? And she's like, yep, everyone was okay. Hung up. By that stage, we were outside. I said, we left the groceries there and off we went. And we're driving down the road and Karina, you know, being the physio, she's like, right, this is the plan. She was driving. Everyone stay calm. Nobody panic. When we get there, we'll just make sure that everyone's okay. You look for this person, da-da-da-da-da. She literally pulls the car over and Lauren and I just flew out of the car because the traffic was backed up for about 200 metres and we ran down the road, so like something off Baywatch, but it didn't look like that. And then we came across the scene and it was just like, oh my goodness, you know, the van's on its side, there was police cars, there was 3 ambulances there, the girls were sitting in the gutter. And we were counting them, and then Dana was like, somebody's missing. There is somebody missing. And it was Shannon, and we couldn't find her. And she said, Shannon's not here. And anyway, she was in the back of an ambulance getting treated. So once we sort of did the head check, we were supposed to be going to a promo at Ronald McDonald House. So then I had to ring Kate Buchanan. Hey, Kate. I was a little bit like, Jen, don't panic, but the girls have been in a van crash. I was like, you're going to have to cancel that promo. And she was like, okay. And I said, I'm going to ring you back as soon as I can. Hung the phone up, and she was just like...
What? What?
5 minutes later. Yeah, so it kind of played out like that, but it was horrible. There was nothing nice about it. You had, the players they just handled it so well, and their families were amazing. Lana, who was the CEO at the time, and Kate, they were amazing. They were just like, what do you need? How can we wrap this support around you? And I think that's the piece about Southlanders, right? That they just go, right, what do you need? And they just made it happen. And even the people at Christchurch Hospital, they didn't know who we were, but they knew that we were a netball team. They emptied out this closet, basically this size, and put all the girls in the one room because they knew that that was going to be the best thing for them. And the doctors would come in and treat them in there. And they tried to keep them away from general public and things like that. So, yeah, it was honestly a tough few days. And then obviously we find out that we have to play, like we have to field a team. And that in itself was just mind-blowing to think that we had to still make this game happen. When you think about, one of my values is always look after them as people first. And now I had to actually flick the switch and go into coach mode and get a team ready. And I was like, but they're broken and I want to help fix them. So that was really tough. So ringing these young players like Aaliyah Dunn and Sophie Urwood and so can you come up? Yep. And they arrived the next day. And they're honestly walking into carnage. Like we're all traumatised. Jen's got whiplash and someone else has got gravel rash and, and we're a little bit delirious because nobody slept for 24 hours. And then we've got to go to a training and then somehow we've got to come up with a game plan and beat the tactics. And we did. And I still honestly don't know how. I do know how. I know that there were players like Jane Watson, Tuhinga Selby Rickett, who like Hoochie in that moment of that last quarter, I think we were down by 7, and she said, we're not losing. We are going to go out there and we're going to win the ball, and when we win it, we just have to take it down to the other end and score it. We just have to get one at a time. That's all we have to do. And that's what they did. And, there were moments in that game where players came off because they were so emotional they couldn't hold themselves together. And in those moments, I had to be mean, and I had to say, pull yourself together, wipe your nose, wipe your tears away, get back out there and sort of pat them on the butt and away you went. And I just remember thinking, oh, I'm a horrible person. But, I really had to just go into coach mode. And then as soon as we won, the emotions afterwards were just so draining. It was just...
Because I remember the photo that sticks out with me, I think, is Wendy on the sideline with a crutch or something, like just cheering on and with the team. And it was just that photo that sort of summed it, the whole thing up.
And that's it. She'd been in surgery for like 4 hours with something like 57 stitches, and the doctors had said she shouldn't go to the game. She needs to stay home and rest. And I was like, they want you to stay home and rest.
No chance.
I'm coming to the game. And I just said, righto, what do you need? Again, what do you need? I'll just sit there. Because she wasn't allowed to sit on the bench, of course, because she wasn't part of the team. What do you mean I'm not allowed to sit on the bench? I was like, you're going to have to sit on the physio table. So you couldn't keep her away.
Yeah.
So, and you were too, wasn't that? It was only a few weeks out from finals too, wasn't it?
You'd
gone
like
through
15
an undefeated...
days or something. And the surgeon at the hospital had said to Wendy, there's no way that you're going to play that final. And it was just lucky that Leslie Nichol was one of the doctors at the van crash game, and she said, don't worry about it, Wendy, he doesn't know you. I think you're going to be fine.
Dr. Rumble, good
and
diagnosis.
We were like, see, you're good to go. So that was it. That's all she needed. And obviously she did. We went on to win that end. But, yeah, that was a massive game, and it was, again, that wasn't about coaching. That was just about looking after your people, making sure that everyone was okay physically but mentally okay. And we weren't okay. Like, we definitely weren't okay, but we got through it together. It was just, I think that was the thing that got us through, was knowing that we were all in it together and we'd all experienced it, and it was nuts.
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible story, isn't it? And it's amazing actually to relive it. It's a good note to finish on, but tell us a little bit about now what happens, so what's your process?
Yeah.
You're going to go back into process mode. I can hear this already.
Yeah.
Debriefing the season, all that sort of thing, but talk us about how it'll roll and then when you leave.
Yeah, so next week is just doing end of season reviews, making sure that I catch up with each player, all of my management team. I think I finish with Netball South the first week of September, so that'll be my last week. And then I've got a week or so off to just sit and breathe for a bit before I jump into planning my next season. So I'm really fortunate that I get to do a month at home of just planning for the Cardiff Dragons, and then head over mid-October and we'll spend a couple of months meeting my team, meeting my management group, and just sort of setting the foundations, making sure that I've got everything to a point that I feel comfortable with. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, making sure that in that first sort of month that I do something that's going to be an absolute train wreck. And what I mean by that is if we go to a game, I feel like I need to set it up so that we almost fail miserably, so I know what our processes and steps will be. So if we plan it out but it doesn't go the way that we think it does, I'm totally okay with that because that gives me more to work with. So I'd rather see people at their worst than at their best. So I'm planning that in. They don't know that. That'll be a bit of a surprise. Hopefully don't listen to this. Yeah, so I think... so head over October, and then I'm going to come home for Christmas to try and find some sun before I head back into the winter again. Yeah, and then head back sort of end of January, start of Feb, and do a bit of a longer stint till about now. So that's what it looks like, and it's fairly exciting, and my kids are really excited that they get to come over and visit. But I've had lots of people reach out and say they'll be over there at different times. My family, I've said that they can't all come at the same time; they have to spread themselves out. So I've got visitors, because I think for me that's going to be the toughest challenge, is not the coaching and not the netball, but definitely sort of leaving my family. But I do know that I've signed up for it, so I just have to remind myself that.
It's the tough thing about coaching a winter code, right? You have to go winter to winter to winter.
No, not good, not good. Yeah. Might need to coach beach volleyball.
Yeah. Well, I think the only thing left is to say thanks. And we honestly mean that. And I know you did a really good job of deflecting that question that we put to you, Reinga. But the contribution that you've made from a playing point of view, and then obviously from a coaching point of view, was immense. So we feel great. And I know I can speak for all three of us being involved over the years alongside the team. But from a media point of view and from a conversation point of view, there's been none better. So. Thank you for your incredible contribution, and can't wait to follow you on the next chapter. All the best for it.
Thank you very much for having me.
We've now become Cardiff Dragons fans.
Yeah. We can sit side by side.
Go the Dragons.
Yeah, exactly.
Travel safe, mate.
Thank you.